My name is Ethan Walker, and failure has always been my family's favorite word for me. I was the youngest of three. My brother Derek was the star athlete turned financial advisor, my sister Rachel the overachieving corporate lawyer. And me? I was the one who dropped out of college after 2 years and floated from job to job, trying to figure out who I was. For most of my 20s, I avoided family gatherings like the plague. But last Thanksgiving, something in me shifted. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that I could sit at that judgmental table and not fall apart. The Walker house, our childhood home, hadn't changed much. The same weathered mailbox with a faded red flag, the cracked steps Derek never got around to fixing, the smell of sage and roast chicken drifting out the open window. As I walked up to the front porch, my chest tightened. I wasn't afraid of confrontation. I was afraid of being invisible. Again. "Look who decided to show up," Rachel said the moment I stepped inside, her smile too perfect to be sincere. Derek clapped me on the back a little too hard. "Didn't think you'd remember where we lived." Mom stood by the kitchen island, wearing her pearl necklace and that strained expression she always got when trying to pretend we were a normal family. "It's good to see you, Ethan," she said. But even her voice sounded like it was walking on eggshells. Dinner was tense. Conversations drifted around me like I wasn't even there. Rachel talked about a high-profile case she was leading. Derek bragged about closing some million-dollar deal. They didn't ask what I was doing, and I didn't offer. I stared at the chipped china plates, the same ones we used when Dad was still alive. He passed 5 years ago, and with him, it seemed, went the last shred of respect I had in this family. Then it happened. A moment so brief, I almost missed it. Rachel leaned toward Derek, whispering something behind her wine glass. They both laughed, then looked at me. Not past me, at me. It wasn't just the glance. It was the kind of laugh people do when they think they're in on a joke you'll never understand. I caught Mom watching me from across the table. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. But the moment she saw me noticing, she looked away. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just the usual dismissal I'd grown numb to over the years. Still, something about that whisper gnawed at me. After dinner, I went out back to breathe. The air smelled like damp leaves and something else, smoke maybe, or resentment left out too long in the cold. The back porch creaked as I stepped out. I used to sneak out through this door in high school, trying to escape a house that never felt like mine. That's when I noticed it. A shoebox, half hidden behind a stack of firewood. It was old, battered, almost invisible in the shadows. I picked it up, fingers brushing off years of dust. The lid was slightly open, like someone had been through it recently. Inside were old photographs, letters, and a deed. Before I could read it, I heard footsteps. I shoved the box back, stepping away like it had burned me. Derek appeared in the doorway. "Still brooding out here in the dark, huh?" I forced a smile. "Just needed air." He eyed me, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in his expression. Not annoyance, not superiority, fear. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual smugness. "Don't stay out too long. Mom's worried you'll disappear again." I nodded and let him go back inside. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The way Rachel whispered, the way Mom looked guilty, the shoebox that didn't belong there. Something was off. This house, it felt haunted, but not by ghosts. By secrets. When I returned to the living room, Rachel was gone. Derek sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, and Mom was in the kitchen, her back turned. "Where's Rachel?" I asked casually. "She left early," Mom said too quickly. "Had an early morning." But her hands were shaking as she poured herself another glass of wine. That night, I lay awake in my old room, the walls still covered in childhood posters, peeling at the corners. Every creak in the house sounded louder, every silence heavier. At 2:17 a.m., I got up and crept back to the backyard. The box was still there. I opened it again, heart racing. There was the house deed, dated 6 months ago. Not in Mom's name. Not in Derek's. In someone else's. But before I could read further, the porch light flicked on. "Ethan?" It was Mom's voice. I slammed the box shut, turned, and smiled like nothing was wrong. Just couldn't sleep. She looked at the box, then back at me. You shouldn't be messing with old things, sweetheart. Her words sounded harmless, but her eyes, they were begging me not to ask. And I didn't. Not yet. But the feeling lingered. Something was unfinished. Something was wrong. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Derek's voice echoing down the hallway. He was on a call, pacing back and forth outside my old bedroom. Through the crack in the door, I saw his silhouette moving like a shadow, restless, agitated. No, I don't care what she said, he hissed into his phone. We had a deal. He wasn't supposed to show up. The words hit me like cold water. I froze in place, careful not to make a sound. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Eyes strained to listen. He doesn't know anything, but Rachel's getting paranoid, Derek continued. If Mom talks, no, I'll handle it. Just stick to the plan. I heard the floorboard creak beneath him. Then silence. I backed away from the door, fast but quiet, like prey knowing it's been spotted. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. I wasn't sure what I was planning to do. Record him? Confront him? Call Rachel? No, not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to know what the hell was going on in this house. By the time I left my room, Derek was gone. Only his half-finished coffee cup remained on the hallway table, still warm. I found Mom sitting at the dining table, flipping through old photo albums with a dazed look in her eyes. Hey, I said, cautiously sliding into the chair across from her. She smiled weakly. You always loved this picture, she murmured, turning the album toward me. It was a photo of me and Dad, fishing at Hollow Creek. I was 7, my front tooth missing, holding a fish half my size. Yeah, I said softly. He never gave up on me. Her hands faltered. That's when I leaned in. Mom, what's going on with the house? She blinked. What do you mean? I found a box behind the firewood. It had a deed. Someone else's name is on it. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her fingers clenched the edge of the album. Mom, I pressed, did you sell this house? She finally looked at me, and her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Fear. I didn't want to, she whispered. They pressured me. Who? Derek. Rachel. After your father died, I was overwhelmed. They said it was just paperwork, that they were helping. I signed things I didn't understand. I leaned back, stunned. You didn't read the deed? I trusted them, she said, tears rising in her eyes. I thought they were protecting me. I stood up and began pacing. So, whose name is on it? She shook her head. I don't know them. Some investment group. Rachel said it was to reduce taxes, that it wouldn't change anything. But now, they're trying to hide it from me. She nodded. I felt the floor drop beneath me. This house, the house I'd grown up in, the one place that held what was left of my father's warmth, it was no longer ours. And worse, they had lied. They'd laughed behind my back. And now I knew why. I needed answers. Real ones. So, I went to the garage. Dad's old filing cabinet was still there, buried under toolboxes and paint cans. I rummaged through it until I found the keys taped beneath the handle, just like he always said. Hide things in plain sight, son. Inside were folders, tax returns, insurance papers, legal documents. And then I found it, a manila envelope labeled Transfer, July 2024. My hands were sweating as I opened it. Inside were documents showing that 6 months ago, the property had been sold to an LLC called Sable Ridge Holdings. It wasn't even a family name, it was a shell company. But here was the kicker, Derek's signature was on the last page, along with a notarized power of attorney for my mother. He had tricked her, lied to her, and now, he was sitting in her house acting like he still owned it. I took photos of every page. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them yet, but instinct told me to document everything. That evening, I confronted Rachel. I drove to her downtown condo, paid for, no doubt, with her 6-figure salary and her icy ambition. She answered the door in workout clothes, her expression freezing when she saw me. Ethan, she said slowly. Didn't expect a visit. Yeah, I bet. Can I come in? She hesitated. I have a meeting soon. I didn't move. Won't take long. She stepped aside and I entered. The place was pristine. Cold. Minimalist. The opposite of the chaos she left behind in our family home. I know about the house, I said. I saw the deed. Her jaw clenched. You lied to Mom. Used her grief. Got her to sign over power of attorney and funneled the deed into some ghost company. I don't know what you think you found. I cut her off. Sable Ridge Holdings. I saw the paperwork. Derek signed it. You orchestrated it. She crossed her arms. It's complicated. No, it's simple. You stole the house. We didn't steal anything. We protected it. Mom couldn't manage it. She was going to lose it to taxes or worse. We safeguarded it. By tricking her? She was falling apart, Ethan. You weren't here. You were off chasing dreams and failing, again and again. We had to make decisions. And what? Sell the house from under her. Laugh about it behind my back. Her face darkened. You think this is about you? Yes, I snapped. Because you've always treated me like I didn't belong. Like I was a burden. You were, she said sharply. You still are. That stung more than I expected. But it clarified everything. She wasn't sorry. Neither was Derek. And now I had proof. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to take back what was stolen from my mother, from my father's memory, and from me. I left Rachel's condo with my jaw tight and my knuckles white against the steering wheel. Her last words haunted me. You still are. A burden. To them, maybe, but not to the truth. That night, I stayed in a hotel near downtown. I couldn't go back home. Not while they were still there, smiling over dinner and pretending nothing happened. My mind was spinning, but somewhere in the chaos, clarity emerged. I needed help. So I called Jordan Clark, my dad's old friend and longtime attorney. The man who helped him start his landscaping business, the same one Derek let die after Dad passed. I hadn't spoken to Jordan in years, but when he answered and heard my voice, his tone turned serious fast.
Ethan? What's going on, son?
I need to see you. It's about the house and Derek. We met the next morning at a quiet cafe near the courthouse. Jordan was older now, gray creeping into his beard, but his eyes still held that sharpness I remembered as a kid, like he could smell a lie before it was even spoken. I handed him the photos I'd taken of the documents. He scanned them slowly, his brow tightening with every page. I've seen this name before, he muttered. Sable Ridge. He nodded. They're dirty. Flip properties fast. Usually tied to insider deals, under-the-table cash, shell entities, coercion tactics. If they got a hold of this house, it wasn't by accident. I leaned forward. So, what can we do? Well, he said, folding the papers. First, we prove fraud. Your mother had power of attorney signed under questionable circumstances. If we can demonstrate manipulation, coercion, or cognitive impairment, we can void that deed transfer. She's sharp, Jordan. They took advantage of her grief, not her mind. That's good. Emotional manipulation can still qualify as undue influence in probate court. Will it hold? He looked me in the eye. If we move fast, maybe. But you need to brace yourself. For what? There's more to this. You're chasing the house, but I'd bet there's money involved too. Big money. Derek and Rachel wouldn't risk this for a piece of land unless something else was at stake. It hit me like thunder. Dad's insurance policy. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I'd been listed as a secondary beneficiary, but everything had been left in a trust, something Dad set up for the family, he'd said once, when I was 19. Rachel handled the trust paperwork after the funeral. I never asked questions. But now I did. I found the email. Scanned it. The trust account balance, $1.4 million. Untouched until 4 months ago. That's when 2 withdrawals were made. One for $250,000. Another for $500,000. Both wired to an account under the name Derek A. Price. I showed it to Jordan. His face darkened. Now it makes sense, he said grimly. They didn't just steal the house. They looted your father's legacy. Fueled by rage and clarity, I returned to the house that evening. Derek and Rachel were there, sipping wine in the living room as if the world outside didn't exist. Mom was nowhere to be seen. "You two really think you got away with it, don't you?" I said, walking in unannounced. Derek stood. "Ethan, what the hell? You drained the trust. You stole from your own mother. And you sold this house to a company that flips homes like playing cards." Rachel paled. "How did you?" I spoke to Jordan. "I have the records. I'm filing an injunction in the morning." Derek's face twisted. "You think a judge is going to take your word over ours? You've been out of the picture for years." "No, but they'll take my mother's word. And she's ready to talk." That silenced them. For the first time, I saw fear crack through Derek's smug expression. I didn't wait for them to respond. I went upstairs and found Mom in her room, knitting like she used to when I was a kid, when things were calm. She looked up, eyes questioning. "We're not letting them win," I said. "Not this time." She nodded slowly, and a tear slipped down her cheek. "They took everything your father worked for." "Not everything," I said, kneeling beside her. "They didn't take you. They didn't take me. And they didn't take his spirit." She placed her hand over mine. "Let's bring him justice." Later that night, I got a message from Jordan. Subject: urgent Sable Ridge leak. Body: call me now. A whistleblower just came forward. "You're not going to believe what we found." I dialed immediately. Jordan's voice came through, low and serious. One of their former consultants came forward. They weren't just buying houses. They were laundering money through fake renovations. "And your father's house?" It was tagged for demolition, then reconstruction using inflated invoices. They were going to destroy it? More than that. They were going to fake a remodel, charge triple the cost, and launder the rest through fake contractors. My stomach churned. Did Derek know? Not only did he know, he was on the payroll. The truth wasn't just betrayal. It was corruption. It was deeper than I'd ever imagined. But now I had evidence. I had allies. And I had a mother who believed in me. And come hell or high water, I was going to burn this illusion to the ground. The next morning, the sun broke through the hotel curtains like it had something to prove. I barely slept. My mind was racing, but adrenaline kept me upright. Today wasn't about survival. It was about strategy. I met Jordan at the courthouse steps. He had a stack of documents under his arm and fire in his eyes. "We're filing for an emergency injunction," he said. "We're naming Derek and Rachel in the petition, and we've added Sable Ridge as a co-defendant. The whistleblower's affidavit is the nail in their coffin." He handed me a copy of the filing. At the top, Ethan Michael Hayes versus Derek Allen Price, Rachel Monroe Price, and Sable Ridge Holdings, LLC. I couldn't believe it. My name standing against them. "Once the injunction is filed, they can't legally touch the house," Jordan explained. "If they do, it's contempt of court. They're cornered." We walked in and filed the paperwork. As the clerk stamped the petition, it felt like a hammer striking steel, a beginning forged in justice. That afternoon, I returned to Mom's nursing facility to check on her. She looked stronger, more alert. The haze she'd been under was lifting, like her soul recognized that something real was finally happening. "I talked to the social worker," she said. "They're reviewing the documents I signed for Derek." I told them I felt pressured, that I didn't understand what I was signing. I nodded. "That's huge, Mom. It supports the claim of undue influence." A long pause. Then she said, "Do you think your father would be proud of you?" I blinked fast to stop the sting behind my eyes. "I hope so. I'm doing this for him." She smiled softly. "No, you're doing it for you. And that's even better." The next big move came faster than I expected. Jordan called. A local reporter picked up the court filing. "Wants an interview." This could help put pressure on Sable Ridge. At first, I hesitated. Public attention was dangerous, but it also meant exposure. If these people thrived in the shadows, maybe the light would be the weapon they couldn't survive. So I agreed. I met Jessica Lane, an investigative journalist with piercing green eyes and a voice like a truth-seeking missile. She recorded our interview in a quiet downtown coffee shop. "They sold your family's legacy to launder drug money," I told her. "And my brother helped them." She leaned forward. "You know what you're risking, right?" I nodded. "I've got nothing left to lose." The article dropped 3 days later. How a greedy brother and a dirty developer tried to erase a family's legacy and got caught. It went viral. Local news picked it up. Then regional. Sable Ridge's shady dealings had victims all over the state. Lawsuits began piling up. And suddenly, Derek and Rachel weren't so smug anymore. They showed up at the injunction hearing with a high-priced attorney. But nothing could erase what had already come to light. Their financial records were subpoenaed. Mom's testimony was submitted. The whistleblower's affidavit went on public record. When the judge ruled in our favor and granted the injunction, the courtroom fell into stunned silence. Derek looked like he'd swallowed a grenade. Rachel tried to hold his hand. He pulled it away. That night, I visited the house again. Alone. It was quiet.
Still.
I stood in the living room, where Dad used to watch Sunday football. The TV was gone now. The photos stripped from the walls. But I could still feel him there, like the house remembered us. Like the memories were still etched in its bones. I walked upstairs, into the bedroom where I'd grown up. Nothing remained but sunlight through half-open blinds and dust on the windowsill. But I stood tall in that empty space. I had faced everything I feared, and I hadn't run. As I turned to leave, a voice came from behind. "I never thought you'd do it." I turned. Derek stood at the top of the stairs, hands in his pockets. "You always were the soft one," he said. "The dreamer. But I guess you figured out how to fight dirty." "No," I replied. "I figured out how to fight fair. You just weren't ready for that." He chuckled bitterly. "You'll lose in the end. People like me always land on their feet." "Maybe. But not this time." "Why not?" "Because now the world's watching." He started to say something else, but I was already walking past him. I didn't need to hear it. He was already history. Outside, the wind picked up. The air felt different, charged with something new. Something possible. Back at the hotel, my phone buzzed. A new email from Jordan. Subject: settlement offer. Body: they want to talk. Full restoration. Public apology. Your move. And just like that, the tides were turning. But I wasn't finished yet. This wasn't just about reclaiming the house. This was about reclaiming who I was. I stared at the email for a long time. Settlement offer. The words felt surreal. Like the villains in a nightmare suddenly asking for forgiveness. But I didn't click reply. Not yet. Instead, I forwarded it to Jordan. His response came in 2 minutes flat. "They're panicking. That means they're weak. We go into settlement only if you get everything you want, Ethan." Everything. Everything. What a strange word. Because truthfully, this had stopped being about real estate a long time ago. It had become about dignity, identity, about standing in the ashes of everything they burned and still rising. The settlement meeting took place at a sterile downtown law office with gray walls, stiff chairs, and water bottles that cost more than my childhood sneakers. Derek sat across from me, his lawyer whispering in his ear like a devil at confession. Rachel wouldn't meet my eyes. She looked pale, drawn, like a ghost of the woman who once called me a failure while sipping wine by the marble kitchen island. Sable Ridge sent a lawyer too. No executives. No apology. Just suits and silence. Jordan leaned into the table. "We're not here to negotiate terms," he said. "We're here to listen to your confession." Loud and clear. Derek tried to speak, but his lawyer cut in. "We're prepared to transfer full ownership of the property to Mr. Hayes. In exchange, we request a signed NDA." Jordan raised a hand. "No NDAs. Ethan speaks freely. Or there's no deal." The room went silent. Then Rachel whispered, "We didn't know they were laundering money. We just wanted the payout." I stared at her. "You didn't care what it cost me, what it did to Mom. You looked me in the face and said I wasn't worth it." Derek finally spoke. You were always soft. That's why Dad favored you. I wanted to prove I could be something. I laughed, quiet, bitter. You proved something, all right. Just not what you think. We walked out of that room with everything. The house, the deed, a signed public apology, and an open record of all wrongdoings. The next morning, the headline ran, "Wrongfully Erased Son Wins Back Home and Legacy," by Jessica Lane, special report. The photo beneath it showed me standing in front of the house with Jordan on one side and my mother on the other. Her smile was quiet, tired, but proud. I moved back into the house that same week. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Same rustling trees, same cracked sidewalk near the mailbox, same old scent of pine from the backyard. But I had changed. I walked the hallways with my head high. I painted my childhood bedroom in deep navy and placed a single framed photo on the nightstand. Me and Dad, fishing at the lake. I was maybe 9. He had his arm around me. We both looked sunburned, windblown, and completely at peace. But then, something strange happened. About a week after I moved in, I noticed a car parked across the street. Black SUV. Tinted windows. It never stayed long. 15, 20 minutes. Then gone. At first, I ignored it. Could be anyone. But then it showed up again. Same spot. Same time. Every evening. I told Jordan. He said to keep a log. Maybe a plate number. On the 5th day, I walked outside, bold, phone in hand, pretending to take photos of the yard. The SUV engine roared, and it pulled off.
Fast.
Too fast. That night, I found something in the mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Just a manila envelope. Inside, a USB drive. And a handwritten note. You only uncovered part of it. Look deeper. I stared at it for a long time. Was this a threat? A warning? Or the start of something even darker? I plugged the USB into my old laptop. It contained a single folder labeled Sable Ridge, Project Phoenix. Inside, PDFs, maps, financial records, blueprints of homes. Not just mine. Dozens. It wasn't just money laundering. It was land theft. They'd done this to hundreds of families, targeting the elderly, the vulnerable, the forgotten. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't over. The next day, I met with Jessica. She looked at the files, jaw tight. If this is real, it's the story of the decade. You're not just a survivor, Ethan. You're a whistleblower. I shook my head.
No.
I'm a witness. But I'm not alone anymore. She paused, then asked, "Are you ready for what comes next?" I thought about Dad, about the dreams he had for us, the values he drilled into my bones. Integrity, truth, family. Then I said, I was called a failure for most of my life. But if this is what failure looks like, exposing the rot, reclaiming what's ours, and helping others do the same, then I hope I fail again and again. That night, I sat on the front porch. The air was crisp, quiet, and then footsteps. Someone approaching from the dark. I stood. It was a man in a hoodie, unfamiliar, silent. He stopped at the edge of my lawn, then said just one thing. "They know you opened the drive," and vanished into the night.